So Jalen Brunson did a sit down in which he spoke about his last season with the Dallas Mavericks and what was his contract situation going into free agency, as there were numerous opportunities for Mark Cuban to go ahead and sign Jalen Brunson. But if we take a step back and play Monday morning quarterback on this overall situation, it looks like Mark Cuban tried to leverage the open market against Jalen Brunson, as the Knicks were really the only team that was rumored to be interested at the $100 million price point. But at the time, they did not have the cap to make that happen. And we've seen this play out and go bad for a lot of players. Guys like Dennis Schroder, Nerlens Noel when he was in OKC. Sometimes players think that they have more options in the open market and they end up regretting not taking the offer from their current teams. And they end up getting a lot less. As Nerlens Noel, I believe he rejected an $80 million 4-year deal. Same thing for Dennis Schroder when he was on the Lakers. But both of those guys end up hitting free agency, getting not even half of that money. But in the circumstance for Jalen Brunson, the Knicks at the time entering that offseason did not have the cap room, as they pulled off major moves during the NBA draft. And that's when Mark Cuban saw his leverage basically get pulled right from underneath him. But once again, this was a hell of a move by the New York Knicks, who over the years don't really necessarily have the branding or the cachet to be the type of franchise to pull off smart moves. But unfortunately for Mark Cuban, on the night of the 2022 NBA draft, the Knicks were on one that night, pulling off 3 different moves to free up cap space to all of a sudden have enough room for Jalen Brunson. The first move the Knicks made was giving the Hornets a 2023 first-round pick in exchange for 4 future second-round picks and also the rights to Jalen Duren. So as the night went on, they took those rights to Jalen Duren and packaged it up with Kemba Walker's salary and gave it to the Pistons in exchange for the Bucks' 2023 first-round pick, which is top 4 protected. But the Knicks weren't out of hot water yet, as the final move of the night, and you can't underestimate the relationship it seems like these two franchises had, as the Knicks called up the Pistons once again and got rid of a recent free agent signee that they had in Nerlens Noel and also Alec Burks. So they sent those 2 guys away for a future second-round pick and also the draft rights for another player. And that final move right there freed up $20 million. So now all of a sudden, midway through draft night, the Knicks had enough cap space to sign Jalen Brunson out of the 3 moves that it took them to kind of finesse this whole situation and pull the rug right underneath Mark Cuban's feet. Because still to this day, had the Knicks not freed up that much cap space, we haven't heard of another team that was willing to offer Brunson a $100+ million deal. So Mark Cuban was using that same leverage that happened to Nerlens Noel when he was in OKC and Dennis Schroder when he was on the Lakers, and took a gamble on their free agency market collapsing, thus them having to take a smaller deal. And that basically ended up backfiring on him. And even in a way to this day, the Mavericks are still somewhat recovering from that. But you guys check out what Brunson had to say, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I really did want to stay in Dallas. I think before the season, before my 4th season in Dallas, my last season in Dallas, we tried to extend our contract, whatever we can get. The most we can get was like 4 years and $55 million. And so obviously we wanted to do that. I wanted to stay there. I thought I would be there for a long time, and I liked my role there.
Once again, had the Knicks not made those moves during that 2022 draft, Brunson would have went right back to the Mavs, and Cuban would have basically got him for about that price or maybe even a little less.
It's funny because my agent was like, I mean, you can do so much, you can get more. I'm saying like, well, like I want to be safe. Like, I'm not trying to gamble right now. This is not something you really gamble with if it's out there.
Right.
And so, but they were like, we want to see where we're at, like 20, 25 games into the season. But we were like, all right, well, if we're not going to do it, I kind of don't want to do it until after the season. I'm not trying to think about this.
During the season, right.
Yeah, so there's a period where Luka went out and I started to start, and I was playing really well. I think I was averaging like 20 and like 6 maybe.
He definitely was playing well. Right there, Mark Cuban's eyes should have been on alert. All the Mavericks management. Then again, it was still early in the season.
Whatever. And so it was about that 20 to 25 mark. And so we went back, we're like, hey, like, If the deal's there, we're thinking about it. Like, I'll do it. Like right now, still it was no. Like it wasn't a hard no. It was just like, we want to see. So I'm
So
like,
this was Dallas.
this is Dallas. It's still in Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas at this point still has the leverage because they're looking at the open market. Who's really going out their way trying to throw Brunson a contract right now? So there was no pressure.
Okay.
Because I originally wanted to stay there, and so trade deadline comes. I'm like thinking, like, all right, well, if I'm not getting extended, I'm probably gonna get traded. Probably. I think the way I've been playing, like, there's just like
Playing well, right?
I'm playing somewhat decent, and so that didn't happen. And then yeah, so like the deal came on the table after the trade deadline. I was like, no, I think I've outgrown that now.
Right.
Personally, that's what I thought. I was like, I think I've outgrown that. Obviously, going to playoffs.
I believe at that point, it was obvious that the pairing with him and Luka could actually work. Because Brunson at that point, he proved not only he can be sort of the combo, kind of play the point guard role, but he could be that catch and shoot guy also. That's what probably shocked the Mavericks. But once again, I'm not surprised they weren't hesitant at first to offer him a contract extension due to the KP situation, them giving him an extension, and it didn't quite really work out. So they might have been hesitant of giving other players until they could see how they fit with Luka.
Luka gets hurt like second to last game or last game of the season, and so he's out for the first 3 games, and I obviously did what I did.
Ain't no looking back.
Ain't no looking back.
Woo! Them playoffs, boy. Brunson was cooking Mitchell. Games 1, 2, and then 3, I believe, without Luka in there in that playoff series with the Jazz. And by the time Luka came back, they pretty much dusted the Utah Jazz. But at that exact moment, the Mavs still had leverage because they started hearing rumblings about the Knicks. Also, the Knicks front office showed up to that game that was in Utah just to check out Brunson. Julius Randle was also there. So the rumblings of Brunson going to the Knicks started getting loud, but the financials still didn't make sense at the time. The Knicks did not have enough cap space, and it didn't look highly likely that they were going to be able to give him a large enough deal, and the Mavericks could not only match it, they could actually offer a lot more.
And so that all happens. I'm trying to think of my timeline so I don't mess up. So we lose in the Western Conference Finals. And I remember seeing something on Twitter after the game, and it was like Mark saying, hey, like, we can pay him the most money. And so he says that on Twitter. He says it like in an interview, like with whatever.
Yeah.
Mark Cuban is one of these guys that love to criticize Twitter so much, but he uses it in order to market the upcoming pharmacy that he wants to launch, or just any show or product that he has. But from time to time, that platform also serves as his Achilles heel, because with his back and forth with Elon Musk, they clearly have taken him off the algorithm. So he doesn't really gain as much visibility as he once did before for any audience that doesn't necessarily follow him on that platform. So he does have a love and hate relationship with Twitter, but at the same time, he was trying to gain the leverage right here and just giving Brunson an illusion of loyalty, because it was not until the Mavs got eliminated that he started making Brunson comments throughout the media here and there. He's like a boyfriend that broke up with an old fling, but from time to time he texts her every time he sees that she could potentially get a new man. That's Mark Cuban in that situation. My guy right here is sort of dirty macking in a way.
Like literally right after the game. And so I'm thinking like, all right, I'm okay. I just after that, it was like crickets. From my point of view, I can't speak to anyone else, just from my point of view, it was crickets. And so, and obviously I saw like New York making moves and saw all that stuff. And I was like,
that's that draft night. That's that draft night. Once the Knicks made moves, Mark Cuban knew at that exact moment, Brunson is gone. He's that poker player chasing that last card on the river, and he crashed out.
Home.
Close to home. 2 hours away from where I was, or an hour away from where I was born.
Yeah.
Parents live on the East Coast, whole family's on the East Coast. So I started thinking like, yeah, this could be a real thing. And so then here we are.
And soon after the Knicks made all those moves in the 2022 draft, that's when you hear Mark Cuban saying that there was interference in the negotiations. He started making comments about Brunson's father being in the way, other agendas. But Mark, you had your chances. And the whole Porzingis experience had blown up in his face. So Cuban at that point was 0 for 2 and just finding key pieces to put around Luka. But it is what it is. You hear from Brunson himself. Cuban never offered Brunson anything. Like he said, it was crickets. So looks like the Knicks definitely called his bluff.